Ever used your voice in a game? Beside those DS games from back in the day, Mage Arena is by far one of the most fun games I've played. Today we will be fighting enemies, finding broken relics of the past, and becoming ruler of the Mage Arena. Welcome to 100% of Mage Arena. So we start our journey in the lands of Mage Arena, and this journey starts in the confines of our base. Here is where we have majority of the game's features and functions. We were playing the capture the flag mode, and essentially to run this down as quickly as I can, there's a lot of different locations on the map. There's around 6 to 7 spots, and each area has its own respected flag. What you need to do is capture the enemy's flag in their base. You can also capture other flags around the map, and your goal is to capture more flags than the enemy. The team with the most flags will eventually be able to conquer the other team, as they will no longer have any respawns. So it's a game of who can get the most flags, and it was very interesting to begin our journey with not knowing what to do. The first thing I did was speak to the Superman, who just spoke in a bunch of gibberish. You could barely even hear what the Superman was saying, but it seemed that he needed items. Notice for later because, well, eventually we learned how to craft, but for now, I was pretty much baby-faced. I had no idea what I was really doing. And the only thing I knew was that if I said the magic spell, it would use the spell. So with that, it was time to explore the map, and by leaving the base and heading toward the volcano mountain, we would then find our first confrontation. Climbing up the stone, we eventually arrived inside the volcano base, and here is where we would find our first enemy. In a panic state, I would scream the word fireball, which would cause myself to explode.
Fireball! Fireball! Freeze! Freeze!
I had no idea how powerful these spells were, and by using the spell on myself, I immediately regretted this decision. This was quite alarming, as we had actually now jeopardized the game. We only had a few flags conquered, and the other team had more flags than us. So we would have to wait until our teammate would conquer one of the flags. And thankfully, he actually did, and this allowed us to continue our playthrough. Running through the map, eventually we made it to this blue like mushroom place, and it's pretty unknown what's down in this abyss, but for now all we know is we need to get the other team and make them forfeit. So we eventually all linked up in one of the areas, being this random, I guess, graveyard, and this again caused another fight to break out. I somehow managed to blow myself up again. It was safe to say I had no idea how to actually use this game's combat. I did get a kill, however, but this wasn't too useful, as again, I would make more harm to myself than the other team. This would lead to another attack, where this time I would see players start to bounce off items and use thunderbolts.
Thunderbolt! Fireball! Magic missile!
Oh my god!
Freeze!
Magic missile!
And for the first time seeing this, I had no idea what I was even witnessing. It was safe to say there was a skill gap that I wasn't grasping yet, and if I had managed to find out how these players were doing this, perhaps my skill would improve. Instead, I would use the fireball and again blow myself up. So for the third time now doing this, I had reason to believe I was very much going to have to learn a lot about the game. We had a plan. We would then try to ambush them from behind, so we ran through the swamp area. The swamp area has a very thick and gooey-like residue, which you can't actually move through. We found this out the hard way, as the goo would eventually start to pull us in. Thankfully, my mate had a wormhole which you can use in the spell book, and by saying worm and hole you can actually summon 2 portals, and from that point onwards, if you run through one of the portals, it will take you to the other portal. We had a backup, and by using the hole we managed to escape this really grim demise. All in all, we were pretty much all new to the game, and we had no idea where we were even going. This was until we found a crack in the earth, and this led us to unveil a new location. There were some beams sticking out of the side of this cave, and as we went lower and lower, we found that this was not only any cave, but it was the Crystal Cave. The crystal cave had a lot of things that we could find. The main thing that we found was the other team, and they were somehow inside this cave. A massive battle ensued where both teams would absolutely start throwing spells at each other. We managed to get the upper ground as we damaged the other team quite considerably, and we also had more flags than the other team, so all we needed to do was take out their remaining members. It was very close, however, somehow I managed to use my fireball spell.
Magic missile. Fireball.
We won that. How did we win that?
Which happened to perfectly land on the other team. This ended the game as I got the final kill. And that was our first taste of victory inside Mage Arena. From the last game, I was really wanting to learn more about how I can actually, well, evolve how I played it. So for the next couple of games, it was simply just rinse and repeating. I spawned in the game not knowing what I was doing, and I tried looking around for different items. Safe to say, still having no idea how these items were even formed, I continued to just, well, I did more damage to my team than I did myself. And it was very hard these first couple games to really grasp how I was actually going to compete against these high level wizards. Everyone was a lot quicker at saying fireball, and they were literally screaming these spells, and they were, well, overpowering me. And no surprise, we would be defeated. Well, it was quite sad. The game after this, I wanted to find out how I could actually improve my gameplay. And in the base itself next to Superman, there's an ingredient book. This confirmed to me that yes, there is items in this game, I just had to find them. I eventually tried looking in the forest, we went to the swamp area, and eventually I made it toward this massive mountain. Here is where I found two enemy players starting to talk about the game and giving each other like a, I don't know, breakdown.
Alright. Now we're gonna go back to our castle. Go this way. Bible.
I tried sneaking up on these players, and this ended up being a smart choice as my teammate would rendezvous with me and we would ignite the final battle of the game. Another important detail I forgot to mention is the more you're alive, the stronger your spells get. So by the end of the game, if you've survived the longest, your spells do more damage than the enemies. So with these powered up spells, we would be able to ignite the final battle where we would swiftly defeat our enemies. This landed our second victory, and so far we've won 2 games and lost 1. However, this would soon, well, it would soon flip on us as well. We were going to have a massive streak of losing. The next game began with me going toward this swamp area. In this swamp, there are these, I guess, dwarfs, and their main thing is they're a whole civilization that just trade. So if you give them an item, they will get the item and give you a new one. The new item can be good or bad, but most of the time they're not too bad. I decided, hey, what if I give the gnome my spell book? And as I gave them the spell book, they would give me a random spell. And this was possibly the most stupidest thing I could have done, because I have now lost pretty much every single, well, spell in my arsenal. All I had left was the blink spell, and it seemed that I have absolutely just made the biggest blunder I could have ever made. So after this, I would start to grow a bit of a grudge toward these people, as they had literally took my spell book. And as I was planning on how I could, well, get the book back, we would somehow already have won the game. It seemed that somehow the enemy team didn't put their flag up, which meant that we basically won as soon as we got rid of the remaining members. My next game, I went straight toward the creatures, and in my anger, I happened to have, well, let's just say we can no longer trade with them. Do you reckon we can kill these guys? Fireball. Oh shit! I'm sorry. I then went toward the, I guess, blue mushroom area where I would see people jumping around the mushrooms. Before seeing that player with the mushroom bouncing up in the air, I had suspicion that these mushrooms were something you could bounce on. However, I managed to miss every single mushroom and land straight to the bottom where my health would fully dissipate. This wasn't really a smart idea, so after exiting this mushroom place, I would then make it toward the volcano, I guess, castle. And here is where I would find that there's secret spells you can get on top of each of the 4 pillars. On this pillar, as I climbed it, I opened the box, and this granted me a new spell called Dark Blast. Essentially, if you've ever played Elden Ring, there's a spell that causes a massive concentration of energy. That is essentially what Dark Blast is. So now I had a new spell, and how would I go ahead and use it? The first battle I had, I was defeated, so immediately I had lost the spell which I had just gotten. Everyone was pretty much just trying to survive. Thankfully though, they managed to put the flag back up, which meant we were able to resume the game. However, this wouldn't be for long, as going around the map pretty much just looking for new spells, new items, I would somehow manage to go into another battle. Bro, I can't even move. This of course led to me getting my ass whooped again. This time around, I wanted to explore a bit of the map. Eventually, I stumbled across the graveyard again, and I found a knight who was just sitting down in this spot. This knight is very familiar to someone you may know. It kind of looks like the person from Dark Souls, but maybe I'm just putting 2 and 2 together. This knight is pretty much a fallen soldier, and it's staying here as it has lost a previous battle. It also talks about a Excalibur sword, which apparently was broken into 2 in the mines below. It then says how it fears that it may join his brethren as he lays there defenseless and completely destroyed. So after its heartfelt conversation, I end up grabbing a fireball and shooting it. Just, you know, putting it out of its misery. And I think karma may have hit me later, as the next battle I again was defeated, and this was the end of this game. Yeah, pretty eventful as you can tell. The next couple games were pretty much one of the same, so let me go through some of the key moments that these games had. The first thing that happened was in the next game, me and my mate were playing. He then pulled out an orb-like object, and I was pretty confused on what this was. Because the second I look at him, he's holding 2 random looking items. One looks like a fish out of water, the other one is a massive orb. He said how the orb allowed him to check other players' locations, and this is a very important discovery. We had found an advanced UAV inside of this game. So if we didn't know where a player was, we could simply use the orb to find where the other remaining players were. What? Hey, f you. You. Fireball. I also discovered that I could use a bouncy pad, being this jellyfish-like object. So we had now learned how to use the bounce pads from before, which, yeah, definitely going to be using these in the future. This game would amount to pretty much us meeting in the same spot we usually meet, being the trading area. This game would end pretty much straight away as the other team forgot to raise their flag, which meant we were straight on to our next game. I also want to mention how we're leveling up as we play. I was now level 6 being a novice, but it's important to know that there's actually leveling in this game. This time around, I would try and craft myself an item. I put 2 frogs together, and what would I make? Well, I made a hot air balloon. Like literally, if you use this item, you can fly in the sky. This was something I was not expecting there to be, and I guess you could kind of just go around the map just floating around, which was pretty nice to know. We would then meet up in their base where a fight would happen. I was using my floating new frog item, which by far was my favorite thing this game had so far. I don't know, seeing a guy flying with a frog is something I did not expect to be this majestic. But yeah, this final fight was pretty simple. We just kind of caught them off guard, and we ended up taking out the remaining players. The next game was pretty much the same. However, I had now made a new item, this being this blue frog-like object, and what it did, it basically shrunk everyone down. If you use this item on a player, you became a little short man, and the voice actually changes. You become more squeaky. Fire. So I think this might be my favorite object in the game so far. I don't know why. This match was again back and forth. We had made it toward their base and we managed to capture their flag. However, as we just got into the base, an enemy player spawned right in the middle. So it became a quick little 3-on-1, which ended with the enemy screaming in a very disturbing way. We had now full control of the enemy base, where I would try craft more items. Although the second I tried messing around, I was pretty much taken off guard as well, and the word fireball would be the last thing I heard. And eventually we were only with one player, and that player was soon to be gone as well. The next game was, well, someone had a voice changer where you could basically hear the voice across the entire map. It was very loud and all you can hear was Rick Ashley. So yeah. However, this game was very uneventful. We were defeated very swiftly. I crafted the frog item again because I don't know why, but this is one of my favorite items in the whole game. And this time around, I pretty much just tried going into random spots. I managed to get on top of the fire castle, and better yet, in our spawn base, I actually managed to get to the top of this pillar. Look, I'm up. Look, boys. Look. I ended up getting toward the top of this mountain where one of the enemy players was chasing me with a sword. This was absolutely terrifying. We both had the frog, the balloon thing that makes you fly, and he was chasing me with the Excalibur sword. Oh my f***ing days! Get the f*** away from me! Bro! Leave me! Leave me! And just so you know, this sword is a literal one tap. So if I managed to just slow down for a second, I would literally be done. And I don't think at this point we had a flag. Miraculously, I survived. And I'm not sure what happened to the enemy, but they just stopped chasing me. They must have just lost me. And for the remainder of this game, I pretty much just camped in the mountain waiting for someone to capture this flag. Yeah, no, this was stupid. They captured our flag and we lost this game. So I think I sold. Next game was a quick one. We just pretty much went to their base and took it. Nothing more to say. Following this game, I found out that you can actually make soup with Soup Man. If you just give this person random ingredients, random items you may have, he will give you soup. And some soups are really powerful. Like you can get like thorn skin, which can make you more durable. You can also get a soup that can make you speak across the whole map, but we'll get into that later. But yeah, really interesting here. And my first thing I grabbed was the thorn soup, which made me more durable. This durability came in a little bit clutch, as I would get straight into a battle as soon as I ate this. Battle was quick, but we did succeed and push the enemies a little bit more back. I also learned that if you press B on your keyboard, you can actually teleport back towards your base. For some reason, I didn't even know you could do this, but yeah, you can actually teleport to base, which is pretty cool. This game would go on for a while, as the enemy was actually camping in a random location. We had to find him, however we didn't have the means to do so. However, if you remember before, I mentioned a orb item, and this is pretty much how you can find a enemy's location. So by trading with the gnomes or the dwarfs, we managed to grab ourselves 2 crystals, which we turned into a mystery ball. After finding him, he was literally camping in the bottom of this mushroom place, and we just ended the game pretty quickly after that. Following this, we had a few quick games that pretty much amounted to nothing. Everyone just tried rushing the gnome place, and yeah, there was nothing to say more than that. I started to use more strategy in the games, like if we knew that the enemies were rushing, we'd always teleport back to base to defend it. And not only that, I felt that at this point, the PvP side, I was getting a lot more better at actually using my spells. I know this game's more of a party game, however, there's a lot of combat that you need to learn, and by this point, I was definitely getting a lot better at it. This game would go straight to the wire, as we have basically captured both of the flags, so no team can respawn. So it was basically me and my mate versus 3 enemy players, and we had to pretty much clutch up this game for our team. We were just spamming spells, not really expecting much. However, we started to get a little big advantage as I took out one of the players.
No one can respawn, by the way. No one can respawn unless they teleport back.
Freeze. Yes! Yes! And then my mate managed to somehow take the other 2 players out, which led to a victory. So yeah, this was a little bit of a clutch, but I'm assuming it was a bit of a fluke, as we had no idea what we were actually doing. Following this game, I crafted a new item, being this like bouncy sword thing. Yeah, so this sword is actually broken because there's a glitch in the game where if you spam the sword and somehow it manages to like glitch out of the map, you can actually then infinitely jump as high as you can. So I learned this, you know, through just trial and error, as I found some enemies inside the fire castle, and then all of a sudden I could just bounce to infinity. I could just go as high as I wanted. So this is the first time I've officially broken the game. However, little did I know that if I just stopped using the bounce, I would fall straight to my demise. And yeah, we lost this game because of that. I also managed to craft a iron golem, and basically what this thing does is if you use it, if you place it, it will follow you the whole game. And I believe it does some damage toward the players and also does grab you items, so it's basically your little minion. However, out of all the items, I can't lie, the golem is, or whatever this object is probably one of the least powerful items, but hey, it's pretty cute, and that's all I have to say. Also, the next game, I crafted the staff that can pick up players, and I was just picking up my mate and chucking him across the map.
I don't know, he's grabbing me, I can't move. Where are we going? Is this our base?
Hey bro, what's up bro? Fireball! So yeah, again, getting into some really devious activities, but this game ended as per usual. We rushed the enemy base, and what happened next was pure chaos. Thankfully, we won. Next few games were just back and forth chaos, so I'm just going to go through some of the funniest moments that happened throughout these games, so enjoy. And let the game! Fireball. You can't kill Superman. Hey, chill.
Don't walk in that.
Bro, Bro, George!
Yeah.
Freeze.
Go, help him.
Freeze.
Fireball.
Yeah!
Nice.
Fireball.
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 Hey, they're back in base. George.
Freeze. Fireball. Work, you stupid. No! This game, did you see that? Yeah. Oh yeah. Come here.
Are they actually?
Fireball. Surprise.
I stuck him.
Fireball.
He killed himself.
Fireball. We're teammates, bro. We're chill. Come on. No. I'm healing up. Just chill. Shh. A few games later, we were playing, and all of a sudden, we had completely been rushed. Our base was in jeopardy. So it was now a race for survival. We had to get straight back toward the base. And this ended with an absolutely insane final deathmatch. However, we failed and lost the base completely. So a key lesson was learned throughout this game. Well, keep your base safe and make sure the enemies don't get a chance to rush you. And with that lesson, the next game was exactly what we learned. The base was attacked, we managed to salvage it, and at this point we were literally camping in the base, being quiet, waiting for the enemies to rush. It was very stressful, as any wrong move, if we spoke once, the enemies perhaps could have heard us, and this could have jeopardized our plan. So we camped, waiting, and eventually they would rush. However, the rush they did on us after this was absolutely deadly. There was no way we could have survived this onslaught. And yeah, we got defeated again. So it was safe to say that we had very bad defensive skills. The game after, I had found a new friend, and with this person, we made it toward the swamp. He started attacking these frog creatures, and I mentioned before how these frogs are not too friendly. Just watch out. Watch out. Yeah, do not. Oh, we're dead. We're dead. Oh my god. Get the out of here. Well, as he was attacking the frog, I was very stressful and told him we need to get the absolute out of here. Somehow the frog didn't attack even after he fireballed it. I was then led toward a new location I hadn't even found before, this being the dungeon. This dungeon houses the Excalibur sword, and to grab it you need to grab the hilt and also the sword piece. However, the dungeons are very dangerous, and it resides a bunch of enemies which you don't want to come in contact with. The first enemies are the skeletons. They will simply come from the ground and will chase you throughout the asylum. These skeletons are very strange as they don't actually move, they just kind of teleport, and they're just 2D images. But I mean, avoiding these skeletons is pretty simple as long as you run around them, not into them. The next enemy is a lot more dangerous. You can't outrun this person, it will just find you and cast a powerful spell onto you. This being the Blue Wizard, and the Blue Wizard is one of the most powerful enemies in the game. It will simply find you and cast a powerful spell, which can pretty much take you out very quickly. This dungeon kind of exploration was very short-lived, as the enemies would rush us and end us very quickly. Although I did come in contact with the Blue Wizard, and let's just say that was the last thing I saw in the dungeon. I then spent the next couple of games going to the Mausoleum, also known as the Asylum. How the f did you get that? Did you go to the bloody dungeon?
Yep.
Bro, you cheeky little lad. Alright, let's go f him up, eh?
Yep.
And each time I went there, it was pure chaos. It was simply just survival of the fittest. And the next game ended in catastrophe, as again I was slain by the Blue Wizard. I also learned that if you use the torch on these flammable like things, you can actually light the room up. Yeah, don't even ask how I didn't know this. I then crafted a new item being this jellyfish, and let's just say me and this person were absolutely pissing ourselves laughing when I was using it. What the f is this? It's a shit, it's a fucking shit ray, bro. Holy f. This next game was brutal. It lasted a very long time. Quite frankly, no one knew who could win. It was just back and forth. It was mainly due to me trying to rush the base every time I spawned in. I would literally camp just outside the base waiting for someone to open the door. And as soon as the door is open, I run straight into the base and try and get the flag. I did it once where I actually got 3 of the enemies. However, just before I captured the flag, someone spawned and, well, got me. But this game was very long, and honestly, it was one of the most boring games I've played. Thankfully though, the enemy literally just went nah.
Mate, can you just finish this game?
Yeah, easy. Holy fuck. I'm getting bored, so they thankfully let me take over their base, and that was the end of this game. Moving on, these next couple of games were pretty strange. I had the rare discovery of finding a new item, this being the mushroom golem. It's essentially the metal golem or the iron golem, but it's just a mushroom, and you can actually jump on its head, and this will give you obviously an advantage if you want to try and rush enemy bases. It's pretty cute looking like the iron golem. However, I can't lie, both of these items, being the iron golem and the mushroom golem, are pretty useless. I'd much rather craft literally anything else, but hey, they are cute, and I mean, that's all I gotta say. And in the same game, I managed to grab a new spell, because this game actually got updated as I was recording this video. And what the rock item does is when you say rock, it will summon a massive rock that will just propel anything in its proximity into the air. Fireball. If you get an enemy off guard, you can actually one-tap them if you get a perfect spell. But yeah, the fact that there's new spells being added into the game is really something that I think is a good sign. And who knows, in the next few weeks, some new spells could even be added on top of the rock. If I'm going to rate the rock though, I'd say it's one of the more weaker items, but if you use it correctly, you could definitely get a massive push onto the enemy. This game would go down to the wire. We basically had to rush their base, and I would manage to actually blink inside the base. Yeah, I honestly love the blink spell. It can literally allow you to get into any base at any time. It's much better than the mushrooms, and yeah, blink is a really underrated spell. I just thought I had to say that. But as I got into the base, it became a one-on-one. I had to basically capture the flag and get rid of the enemy. So I used the Thunderbolt spell, which I collected from the Fire Castle, mixed with the Freeze spell, which made it so the enemy would be no more. It was actually a 1v3 by the end of the game, but anyways, that was it for that match. The match right after, I was attacked by the Fire Castle Keepers, which I don't think I've mentioned so far, but these are like orange hooded enemies that can go up to you and make your life a living hell. Thankfully though, I managed to escape their attacks, and they honestly aren't too powerful as long as you get them out of the Fire Castle, because when you're in and you use a spell, most likely you're going to be the one that gets more damage than these enemies. This game would go on for a long time. In fact, it was to the point where I was actually starting to wonder if I should even stay in the match, because it was pretty much like the game I mentioned before where I was trying to enter the base. I obviously had a few good items like Actually, I didn't have anything. So yeah, perhaps if I tried getting the Excalibur sword, this match could have been different. But yeah, it was probably one of the most boring matches and it literally forced me to forfeit. That said, the next game was a little bit more exciting, as this time around I would grab the Excalibur sword, by far my favorite item in the game. And once I had collected this sword, it was game over for the enemies. I had basically rushed them with the sword and this led to them rage quitting. I am not even joking, they actually rage quitted this game. And the match right after this was the exact same. I would grab the Excalibur sword and the same thing would happen. We would go to their base, I would destroy every single enemy and they would again forfeit. So after having 2 forfeits in a row, it was safe to say that we were definitely starting to get on some players' nerves. I next did something a little bit different. I tried the tutorial out because I actually never knew that this game had a tutorial. Although it's in the main menu, I just never clicked on it. And after pressing on the tutorial, well, honestly, I'm glad I never went on this, because here you find the most interesting and just mysterious character I've ever seen. This being the Mirror character. And I don't think I've been through what this character is, or maybe I have and I've forgotten, but essentially it's a witch with a really high pitched voice who is the main announcer of the game.
Section of the examination. To begin, please
Fireball.
flip your spell book and flip
Fireball.
to page 1 by pressing your 1 muscle.
Fireball.
In order to
She just is very annoying. Her voice is very just, it doesn't sound good. And if there's been anything I've wanted to punt just across the map, this is on the number 1 on that list. You can actually find this entity in game in this mirror form, and if you say mirror mirror, it activates and you can just tell it a bunch of questions and it will either say yes or no. Kind of like a talking Tom or talking Ben. Pick your poison, doesn't really matter, but that's basically what this thing is. In this tutorial, it just says go do a bunch of stuff and you learn a bit about the game, but it's a bit annoying, so I just left it because I already learned everything I basically needed to know. Although I did learn that the skull icon actually indicates if you have any more lives, which I didn't know, so I guess that was pretty nice. But yeah, after this I hopped into another game, and this game would be, yeah, no, it was a great game, honestly. I immediately spawned in, placed some thorns down, and this would actually take out one of my teammates. So yeah, off to a great start, but I also kind of had a little talk with one of my enemies. They were telling me to walk backwards into the frog.
Just keep walking back.
Like this?
Keep walking back. Just a couple more meters, and just keep going. Now, if you turn around, the frog's gone. It's a magic trick.
I thought this person was gaslighting me, you know, walk backwards, you know, the frog is not going to harm you. So I listened to him and somehow the frog actually moved away. So it seems if you walk backwards toward the frogs, they don't actually attack, which is quite strange. I think it's mainly eye contact. If you don't face the frog directly, it won't attack you. This game was an interesting one, as the player who was talking to me about the frog glitch or whatever it was a very good Mage Arena player. In fact, he would absolutely whoop my ass every time he got the chance. We even had a little talk in his base saying how we shouldn't keep fighting and that I should just like forfeit pretty much. But like look at the flag, like look how cool it looks. Looks cool.
It does, but I have to. I'm speaking on behalf of my team as well. It's not just me.
Yeah. What's the team saying? Look, wait, I can fly.
I'm not sure.
Whee!
I'm pretty sure they're saying they want to respawn.
I obviously didn't want to, so I kept on pursuing. However, every time I tried, I would just get my ass whooped. So this game was long, but honestly, we didn't have a chance. They would come to our base and destroy it. And the game following this was a very long one as well. If you haven't noticed already, the trend of the games becoming a lot longer is, well, yeah, that's just how these games become. Now, this particular match did frustrate me a bit because I was saying my spells, you know, fireball, this, that, and for some reason they weren't being activated. I thought maybe the game was glitching, but I hadn't taken into account that my mic is just dog shit. So every time I said a spell, it just wouldn't even work. As you can imagine, this was quite bad, and this game would absolutely be one of the most infuriating matches I've played yet. The match would last over 25 minutes, and what would happen is my team would basically just carry me. I was not really doing anything in terms of, well, contributing, as my spells were not working because my mic had absolutely just become shit. But yeah, somehow we managed to clutch up and win the game. Well, sorry, my team clutched up. I just kind of just stood around. Yeah, I think after this game, it's safe to say I think that's enough Mage Arena. And with that, those were all the games I played for this video. I might make a follow-up to this video where we go and play more games, perhaps maybe up to 100, but I think for now that's a good spot to where I think we've done majority of what the game has. If you enjoyed the video, smash a like, and if you are brand new here and never want to miss out on a future upload, then please consider subscribing as well. On screen here are the scariest FNAF characters I've ever seen, so if it's late at night and you want to get scared, then I'd highly recommend checking that video out. But anyways, until next time, take it easy and goodbye.